With the theme that we had, Mission Possible, it was important that we find a keynote presenter who could speak to that, because I know these are uncertain times, especially in California with expanded learning. There was the threat of the 21st century funding, the federal funding, not coming through, and that had a lot of people very frustrated and not certain whether they would have jobs for their staff. And then there's other things that are going on politically, and of course, people were starting to feel like we are focused so much on the uncertainties, we need to start thinking in a different way. And so when the idea of our theme came up, Mission Possible seemed to be the most appropriate one. But then who could speak to that? It had to be someone that we felt like could really embody themselves in the mindset of optimism. And so when we went looking for our keynote presenter, I also remembered that we were part of the Community Schools Partnership. And so I thought, well, maybe someone from community schools. And so as I began to look around, I remembered Aaron Cook, and I thought, I remember bringing him to speak to Lead Butte here in Butte County, and it's a leadership program for all of Butte County. And I know we have a couple of folks here in the room who have participated in that initiative in Chico. And Aaron came to speak. And he did something that I have never seen a speaker do. He connected with virtually every single person in that audience. And I go, how did he do that? He created that sense of community and belongingness. And I thought, that resonates with me. So when we started looking at the theme, I kept thinking, this might be the very person that we want to have present with us. Also, the fact that he is a graduate from Chico State here made it even more important. And he also has a PhD from the University of Central Florida. Don't know really why he ended up with Central Florida, but that's okay. That's okay. The other thing is that when I saw his resume, is that he actually has been a part of the North State in terms of educational institutions. He's been a part of the Tehama Department of Education, the Yuba City Unified School District, Chico Unified School District, and even the Butte County Office of Education. So he is definitely a person who champions what he believes in. So as I began to look at other things about Aaron, one of the things that struck me was that in having nearly filled every role across the educational pipeline, both as a paraprofessional to a school board member to a university professor, he loves to do things from the idea of being completely sold on education, but also as a systems leader. That's important. He's also very much an advocate for public education, and I think you'll see that in his presentation today. The other things I'd like to point out about Aaron is that he is a proud dad, and his family is here to honor their son and their dad. And when you see that family connection, it's really important, right? They're modeling what they talk about. And so he loves swimming. He loves his wife's homemade salsa. I'll have to try that sometime. And he believes in listening deeply, leading collaboratively, and building systems where everyone belongs and thrives. So what I hope you get from today is some of those tenets, some of those concepts and ideas from his presentation as the keynote, and see how we can continue to make the mission possible. So Aaron, without further ado, please come and give us words of wisdom. Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you, Gloria. Got a little choked up there. Start talking about my kiddos and the family. Well, good morning. How are we all doing? Buenos dias. I think we should start in deep space. On this pale blue dot we call home. But let's go back to the 1990s. Do we have some 1990s in the house? Some folks from back then? There we go. It was February 14th, 1990. And NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft was traveling 3.7 billion miles from Earth. It was sailing past Neptune on the outer edge of our solar system. And it had been traveling for 13 years, carrying with it something extraordinary, a golden record of Earth's languages, music, and greetings, a message in a bottle to whatever or whoever might one day find it. And at the urging of a planetary scientist, maybe you've heard of him, Carl Sagan, NASA did something unusual. They turned Voyager back around to look back home one last time. And they turned on their cameras. And it took 3 hours to turn on their cameras. 3 hours, 1990s cameras. Then Voyager began capturing what became the first ever family portrait of our solar system, a stunning mosaic of 60 images, including Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Venus, and Earth. And now here's where it gets profound. Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you need some help? That's it. In the image labeled Earth, our home shows up as a single pixel, a tiny pale blue dot floating in a shaft of scattered sunlight. And that's it, a speck in the vastness of space. The Voyager team knew the photo wouldn't show much, but that's precisely why they took it. They wanted us to see it. They wanted us to feel it. They wanted us to remember how fragile our planet is, how connected we all are, how small we may seem in the grand arc of space and time, and yet how deeply precious. The images took until May 1st, 1990, that's about 3 months after Valentine's Day, to finally reach Earth. And just 34 minutes after they snapped that last photo of home, Voyager powered off its cameras forever to conserve energy for the journey ahead. And yes, Voyager is still up there, still flying and still listening. And attached to that same spacecraft is that golden record carrying the sounds, the music, and the greetings of Earth. A heartbeat is on this record, a Navajo chant, Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good, a mother kissing her child. It's been playing the story of humanity for nearly 50 years, out there in the dark, a love letter to the stars. And this image, this pale blue dot, has hung on the wall at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory ever since. And over the years, they've had to replace it again and again because so many people reach out to touch it. Why? Why do you think? Probably because there's something in us that recognizes the truth in this image, that we are small, but not insignificant, that we are floating together in a single fragile world suspended in sunlight. In his book, The Pale Blue Dot, a vision of the human future in space, Carl Sagan wrote, "Look again at that dot. That's here, that's us, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. Every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. There's perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than the distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known." That image is more than just science. It's a call to zoom in and zoom out and have perspective. A humble reminder that we're all in this together, right there at the BMU. Educators, students, families, communities, suspended in the same beam of sunlight, working to advance our mission in education. For me, that starts right here in Northern California. En esta tierra, con nuestra gente, on this land with our people, in our classrooms, in our ball fields, in our expanded learning programs, and our backyard gardens, in the spaces where public education becomes the launch pad for every kid's mission possible. Friends, I'm here to tell you today, our work isn't about being perfect. Nope. It's about showing up with presence, with purpose. It's about listening closely to each other's rhythm and building something beautiful together, playing our part, our beat to mission possible. Last April, I had the opportunity to travel to Alaska with our community schools colleagues from our region here in Region 2. Portage Glacier, check this out. I'm freezing, quite literally. We took a trip to see Turnagain Arm, where Captain Cook famously literally turned around again after he failed to find the Northwest Passage. And standing here in Portage Valley, surrounded by neon blue glaciers and mountains carved by ice, I had one of those moments where time slows and perspective expands. Our guide, Bob, a native Dena'ina, shared that more than 200 million years ago, a hydrogen-oxygen-based event formed a 30,000-foot wall of ice. This wall wasn't just tall, it was 5 times the height of the nearby 6,000 feet granite peaks. And over eons and eons, that ice carved out the valley we were standing in. 200 million years. That's geological time. Not calendar time, not school year time, and definitely not PLCs at 3:15 time. But Earth time, slow, powerful, patient. And at that moment, I realized I'm not the apex predator around here. Bears and wolves, treacherous sheets of ice, murderous boar tides 40 feet tall coming back to shore, and killer whales. They're in charge here. I'm just a visitor, a beat in something far bigger. And strangely, that didn't make me feel small. It made me feel part of something much grander. Because if nature plays the long game, so do we. Our work is part of an arc of change. That perspective, that humility, is where Mission Possible begins today. Not in urgency or ego, but in awe. Because the expanded learning quality standards call us to start with clear vision, mission, and purpose, rooted in the belief that young people matter and this moment matters. This beat in the song that we're all playing together matters. Portage Valley reminded me every region has its own landscape, its own beat. Alaska has glaciers and ice walls. Here in Region 2, Butte, Glen, Lassen, Modoc, Plumas, Shasta, Siskiyou, Tehama, and Trinity counties. That's all 9, right? What do we have? We have orchards, riverbeds, radiant sunsets coming down on fields and oak trees and playgrounds. Expanded learning should lift up the natural and cultural beauty of our region, not just as a decoration, but as a curriculum. This is place-based education. And if we talk about place, we've got to talk about some history. The place I stood in Alaska reminded me that every place holds stories, especially indigenous stories. The place we're gathered today holds stories of the Mechoopda people, amongst others. Place-based learning must honor the ancestors of the land, whose wisdom and presence continue to shape what justice and relevance look like today. So we're stewards, not just of our students, but of the land. Did you know this? The law requires educators to care for our students as if they were our own children. The law calls it in loco parentis, which means in the place of a parent. In loco parentis isn't just about being in charge. It's about loving responsibly for both the young and this place they'll inherit. In our classrooms, our expanded learning programs, our site cultures, we must model responsibility and appreciation in this perspective. So here's the question I have for you today. If we're just a beat in the song of life, what will yours sound like? What will your beat be? Walt Whitman wrote that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. That the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. Expanded learning gives students the chance to hear their own verse and play their own beat. It's not about getting it perfect. It's about showing up to the moment, to each other, to the work with clarity, care, and wonder. And just like the glaciers reshaping stone, true change in education takes time. It's disruptive. It's slow. It's beautiful. Like Mount Lassen's volcanic tremors beneath the surface, our systems are shifting, and our job isn't to rush it, but to show up, to shape it, to steward it. This is our mission possible. From a pale blue dot to a frozen blue valley, what's the invitation to us as educators, as people who serve youth and their families, as leaders in the trenches of public education? It's this, my friends: presence over perfection. Stop chasing the illusion of flawlessness and instead show up with heart, with humility, and with hope. Because this moment matters, this beat that we have to offer in the tiny window of existence we call our lives. This microspeck in the vastness of space. Professor Brian Cox calls it a living, finite, fragile life within an infinite and eternal universe. Today, I have a message for you. It's a briefing for a mission possible. So here's what we're going to do together. I'm going to give you all the answers, everything you need to know to live our beat with presence, not perfection. And the first one we just did, see time and place. The second one is about hearing, listening, and including. Hearing, listening is a form of leadership and is the antidote to disconnection. And why does this matter? In a time of deep distrust, cultural division, and echo chambers, listening is an act of resistance and of leadership. And presence, not perfection, starts with listening. It's the first step to healing, to collaboration, and to growth. But who do we listen to? And how? I'll tell you who we listen to. Most importantly, we listen to children. I have a bumper sticker. It's hanging in my office, and I've had it for years and years, and it says that, simply listen to children. And it's a constant reminder of something that sounds so simple and yet so hard to do. To listen to the ones we're here for. And what a revolutionary act it would be if our schools did that. You know what? Many of them are. Youth voice. The voices of our youth are becoming stronger and more resonant by the day, up and down the state. Even here in Butte County, BCOE, in fact, has spearheaded a model student voice campaign where students are given the floor to share their experiences and air their voices. Some people, however, feel that student voices are limited, especially when a child has a disability or speaks a language we don't understand. But I've learned that every student has a choice and a voice. We must learn how to hear their voice. Nearly 20 years ago, I was hired as a special ed teacher. I was hired to work in a portable classroom up in Tehama County at a little rural school called Gerber Elementary. Do we have any Rams here today? All right, go Rams. And our kinder through fourth grade program served the most medically fragile kids with the most extensive support needs in Tehama County. They rode the bus from all corners of Tehama County, from tiny mountain towns and dusty ranch roads to come to our school. Most of my students were in wheelchairs. Most were deaf and blind. Many were labeled nonverbal. But nonverbal doesn't mean non-communicative. They spoke. Their bodies spoke. Their energy spoke. They spoke with AAC devices. They spoke with their eyes. When they were hurt, when they were happy. Our job as educators is to learn their language. Because they may be communicating with words or with body language, or our favorite, with behavior. Yes, behavior as communication, that's a whole other topic. I cried big old tears when I left Gerber. It was one of my sweetest classes and one of my dearest teaching experiences, and I will always be thankful to those students and staff because I learned to listen to students. The celebrated activist and educator Grace Lee Boggs said, "I have one rule, listen to children." The student voice continuum shows how adult mindsets and systems can shift from treating students as passive recipients toward empowering them as co-leaders in shaping school culture and policy and solutions. On one end, students are merely informed, and this reproduces inequities. But as we move across the spectrum, consulting, involving, collaborating, we reach the ideal, shared ownership. This is where students, especially Black, Indigenous, and underrepresented youth, are not just heard, they lead. And the message is clear. We cannot unlock transformative solutions without them. So that's listening to children. But what about listening as a personal strategy? All day long, you and I hear our thoughts like a pinball bouncing around in our head. They chatter at us like a monkey, don't they? They can be anxious thoughts. I need to pay my phone bill. They can be critical thoughts. I'm never going to get in shape. They can be exhausting thoughts. My job is so hard. Why am I here? Why do we have these racing thoughts? Because they helped us survive. They're part of our evolution. They're our defense mechanism. Our ancestors had to listen for cracking twigs, for rustling leaves, signs of danger. It kept us alive. But fast forward to today, and we still have that same amygdala. Amygdala is a Greek word for almond or almond, depending on where in the region you come from. Because it's shaped like an almond, it's the reptilian part of our brain. It's our alarm system. It's there to help us survive. But a text message, a questionable look from our boss, a slammed door, it doesn't mean we're under attack. We can learn to notice those thoughts without letting them hijack us. Our brains are wonderful tools, but they shouldn't be in charge. We can learn to listen to our body, to feel when we're stressed, to know when we need a stretch or a big drink of water or a nap instead of another hour of doom scrolling. The last type of listening is to listen to the beat of others, to our environment. We need to listen to our coworkers, to our teams, to the energy in the room. We all know what it feels like to walk into a school and something's off, right? We know that feeling. The vibe is off, the mood is heavy, the environment isn't healthy. And we also know when a place feels alive, when it's supportive, when it's safe, when it's thriving. That's when SEL is truly embedded, not as a curriculum, but as a culture. This is listening to each other, and it's happening right here in Northern California with some beautiful examples. At William Finch Charter School, as part of community schools, my friend Joe and his team launched a listening campaign. They went out and talked to their students and their families and their community partners, and they asked some simple questions. What do you want from your school? What's working? What's not working? What's hard? And how can it be better? Very simple questions, but profound themes that come from these questions. And at Willows Intermediate School, my colleagues did an equally powerful thing. They hosted student focus groups during lunch. And ooh, that pizza, it helped. And they held evening gatherings for families. And they asked, what's your experience been like? How can we do better? What would help you feel more involved? And the messages that came back were very clear. As partners in education, they want to know what resources are available. They want to know how they can be involved and help be a part of the solution in their own education or their children's education. That's the beat of the community. That's listening to the environment. And one of the most powerful tools we have for that kind of listening is something called restorative practices. This is my friend Philip. We got certified together as restorative practices trainers, and over time we became more than colleagues, we became friends. We're both dads of little boys, and we care deeply about showing up for them, not just with love, but with presence and integrity. So our kids play together often, and honestly, that playtime might be just as restorative for me and Philip as it is for them. Philip is also a dog lover, and I mean a serious dog lover. He's especially fond of our golden retriever, Lucas, who basically thinks Philip walks on water. So whether we're trading parenting stories or talking restorative circles or chasing our children around, Philip is someone who shows up with heart. He listens, he lifts others, and he reminds me what it looks like to lead with care. Restorative practices are relational strategies. They help us listen deeply, they help us build trust, and they help us repair harm. Rather than emphasizing punishment or exclusion, they focus on connection, on accountability, on healing, especially for our students and staff who have been marginalized, misunderstood, or harmed. Restorative practices are a way of being in community, repairing, putting relationships first, where every voice matters and every day offers a new beat to create belonging. I'm a huge fan of music. I love many kinds, many of which I won't admit to you here today, but one I will admit to loving is bluegrass. Bluegrass, like jazz, is improvisational. You know where you're starting, and you know a few way markers along the way. But the magic happens in the listening, in the conversation between musicians, the give and the take, the call and the response. This is listening to the beat of others. And at its heart, that's what restorative practice is too. A rhythm, a beat, a shared groove, listening, honoring, and belonging. And when we listen deeply, when we truly tune into each other's rhythm, something beautiful happens. We begin to include. Because inclusion isn't just about policy. It's about presence. It's about listening to people. It's about belonging them. Inclusion isn't just a strategy, it's a heartbeat. It's what happens when we make space for everyone, no matter their zip code, their IQ, their background, their bank account. Let me tell you a story about that heartbeat and my beautiful wife. She's an amazing mom and a former Little Leaguer. She was also a starting softball player for Hamilton City High School, and at family picnics and reunions with her big family from Mexico, she steps up to the plate and cracks that ball well into the outfield, all 5'2" of her. And Rocio wants all kids in our community to have a chance to play ball. So she organized and revitalized Little League in our community to ensure every kid could play, regardless of their income, their ability, their language, or their parental availability. Her preparation in preseason and the maintenance during the season were both a labor of love. But in the end, what we saw was beautiful. A white farmer cheering for a Hispanic kid. A bilingual mom encouraging a white kid who had just struck out. Cross-cultural cheering from the bleachers. This was quiet resistance to racism through community joy. It said out loud and in action, all are welcome. Community can be healing. This is inclusion, my friends. This is DEI in action. It's not a training or a document. Here in a dusty set of bleachers in our backyard with snow cones and sunflower seeds and skinned knees, real people rooting for each other's kids. That's what the expanded learning quality standards remind us to do. Build collaborative relationships that reflect and uplift the communities we serve. We don't do equity in isolation. We do it side by side. And inclusion isn't always a grand initiative or a budget line item. Sometimes it's just enjoying the playground with our students. That happened to me back at Gerber. My students were in wheelchairs most of the day, and it got hot and uncomfortable. So with IEP team support, we'd unbuckle them from their chairs and lay them out in the grassy soccer field to feel the sun and be part of the game. And within days, the kids playing soccer, they knew just what to do. They kicked the ball towards us. They played with us. They cheered for us. And my students soared with joy. They didn't need a rubric. They felt it. Inclusion became instinct. And that's what we're after in our schools. Not just programs, but practices that become culture. As Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. We're not just teaching, we're modeling the world we want to live in. Belonging isn't something we add, it's something we build from the inside out. And when we talk about building belonging, what we're really talking about is the core of the expanded learning quality standards, creating spaces where diversity, equity, and inclusion aren't boxes to check. They're the very soil we're planting in, safe and supportive environments. It's not about doing more, it's about seeing more. Seeing each other, seeing ourselves, and seeing the possibility in all of us. Last one, the last point, here it is. Design your day consciously. What on earth does that mean? Let's go back to the 90s again. I want to take you back one more time. There's a movie that came out in 1993 called Groundhog Day. Have you seen it? Some of the old timers around here. Groundhog Day. This is a story about a jaded, sarcastic meteorologist, right? Played by Bill Murray. Poor Bill. He's sent once again to cover the annual appearance of Punxsutawney Phil, the famous groundhog who supposedly predicts the weather. It's a small town event he sees as beneath him, and he approaches it with rolling eyes and biting cynicism. But something strange happens. He wakes up the next day, and the same day happens again to him. It happens again, and again, and again. Now, for copyright reasons, I can't play the movie, and I definitely can't play the song, but let's just say, I got you, babe. Each morning, Bill Murray wakes up to the same Sonny and Cher song on the radio, the same kitschy bed and breakfast, the same awkward encounters, the same bad coffee, same people saying the same things in the same old town. But eventually, through trial and error and heartbreak, he begins to engage with his day differently. He begins to notice, to learn, and to grow. And that's where I want to pause and offer this reflection. Repetition isn't the enemy. Unconsciousness is. Repetition isn't the enemy. Unconsciousness is. Do you ever feel like you're living in a Groundhog Day? It's okay, it's normal. Each morning we have a choice to see the humdrum of the same old thing, or to wake up, take one step at a time, and with intention, build a life worth living. There was a time in my life when I was doubled over in pain. I was broken by chronic pain. I couldn't walk because my Achilles tendons were so bad from painful degeneration. I couldn't sit because my back was so bad from painful herniation and desiccation. I was reclined in bed for months and months on end, angry and depressed, shaking my fist at the universe and wondering what I did to deserve this. I wanted out of my situation. Andy is one of my oldest friends. We've known each other since kindergarten, playing sports together, souping up our trucks, flirting with girls, learning many lessons together. And Andy's roots run real deep here in this community too. His grandparents, his dad, aunts, and uncles, the McCoys, the real McCoys, at Palermo Union School District. They have served generations of students in our community. Like a true friend does, Andy believed in me and loved me at times when I didn't believe or love in myself. When I needed it most, Andy advised me to just get up each day and put one foot in front of the other, to just keep swimming. And I did. I applied to the University of Central Florida's doctoral program to get my PhD in education. I was accepted on a full ride scholarship. That's why I went there, Gloria. It was a full ride. I got to work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and be on a team of talented researchers studying how to improve classroom behaviors with behavior management strategies from a virtual reality simulator called Teach Live. Here you see 5 avatar students, obviously in their classroom setting. Teachers would enter the simulator and practice delivering their lessons. And we got to manipulate the behaviors in the background. It was so much fun. From mild behaviors like just good old boredom to severe behaviors like swearing and other things, you know what they are. We use the simulator to train teachers to respond more skillfully. And here's the best part. We could literally hit reset and start over, just like a video game. The benefits of this technology were immense. Not only was it incredibly lifelike and fun, but it was also so much less stressful than the traditional way we've learned teaching. From a high-stakes observation where you feel kind of judged and you're sweating bullets. You don't really know how you did or how you can improve. With the simulator, we could stop at any time and start over. We could offer live feedback in the moment. We could make the scene more challenging or less. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, as my great auntie Orpha said as I headed out the door to Florida. I also learned about the value of something called the After Action Review, AAR, a structured debrief after training. All you need to remember is it's a chance for meaningful feedback. AAR happens with law enforcement. It happens in the military. It happens in trades-based professions because the truth is most people don't know how they're performing objectively. After action review gives us a process to reflect and to assess and to gather meaningful feedback. And yes, quantifying a teacher's performance is a challenging idea. I get that. But it also opens up our profession to the possibility of growth. It helps make teaching a more skillful craft. And through all of this, I learned to design my setting, to practice and then practice again, to reflect and practice again, to tweak, to adjust, to get feedback, and to just keep going. A primary developer who built the technology for Teach Live became one of my closest friends. This is Arjun. He's from India, and after graduation, I got to visit his family there, and it remains one of the best memories of my life. Sharing meals with his family, being immersed in the culture, and experiencing the beauty and hospitality of India. And if I had not had that hardship, if I hadn't taken Andy's advice to put one foot in front of the other, to just keep walking out my day, I wouldn't have met Arjun. So how do we design our day, our community schools, our expanded learning programs? Well, schools can be confusing and chaotic places. We know this, right? We need to be okay with experimenting, with practicing, with rehearsing, and starting over. And it's good for our students to see this. It's really good for them to see that making mistakes is okay. It's part of the learning process. We can be intentional with how we structure our day, how we shape our workspaces, how we conduct ourselves, how we attend meetings, how we deliver lessons, how we give feedback, how we praise, how we celebrate, how we treat one another. We can practice like Groundhog Day and the Teach Live simulator over and over again. Not chasing perfection, because there's no such thing as a perfect school, but practicing our design until it gets really, really good. And I'll be honest, sometimes I can be a bit of an over-designer. My wife shakes her head when she sees how packed my calendar gets with color-coded schedules, notifications, and task lists. You know these things. But I really do love my checklists. I love putting down my non-negotiables, the things I don't want to forget in a day. Sometimes I'll put down something cheesy like go hug our golden retriever or drink a big glass of water at lunch. But they can also be substantial things. Play with my kids. Have a safe commute home. These things matter. They're how we align with our purpose, how we remember what kind of life we want to live, and what kind of impact we want to make. There's even a story, maybe you've heard of it, about a professor who brings out a big glass jar in front of a class. And he fills it first with big rocks. Then he adds smaller rocks, then pebbles, and then sand. And when asked, what does that mean? He says, this jar is your life. If you fill it first with the small stuff, the sand, there won't be room for the big rocks. But if you start with the big rocks, everything else can find its place. The big rocks come first. And for me, designing my day, practicing with purpose, is about making sure the big rocks don't get crowded out. Because how we show up for our work, for our students, for our teams, for our communities, also for our families and friends, and most importantly, for ourselves. It all starts with what we put in that jar first. Perhaps no one I know is more intentional with the design of their personal or professional day than my friend Kyle. Kyle just finished his 15th year of teaching at Hamilton Elementary School. He's dialed in with his students, his staff, his colleagues across campus and the county. And most importantly, he's dialed in with his family and himself. Kyle focuses on what he can change. He focuses on growth, student-led IEPs, and advocacy. He loves good food, too. Kyle shows us what's possible when a school day isn't just managed, but consciously designed to uplift every learner. Friends, I'm going to close with this last story. I used to play in symphonic and marching bands in junior high and high school, right over there at Alaskan Auditorium, in fact. Mr. Baines used to tell us, we have any Mr. Baines fans in the house? Anyone know Mr. Baines? He was amazing. Mr. Baines used to tell us, you will perform the way you practice, you will perform the way you practice. Well, Mr. Baines was right, as it turns out, because I used to mostly chat with my stand partner in the trumpet section, not taking practice too seriously. But when we got to the concerts, I performed the way I practiced. So why not practice the way you want to perform? Friends, design the heck out of your day. Schedule it. Stick to it. Practice fidelity of implementation. Really empower student leaders. Make your meetings matter. Start with the big rocks. Stop waiting for clarity. Go design it. Then stand back and watch your program, your site, your staff, and your students grow and prosper. Watch them thrive, not just survive. In closing, my friends, I offer you this mission, should you choose to accept it. Practice your beat. Let go of perfection and instead practice being present. How you practice this presence is how you'll perform. Then see time and place. Hear and include one another. And design consciously. And that's how we'll make the mission possible. Thank you.